The Knockbarron races. The annual Knockbarron races, run 5 miles east of LOUGHREA, were first held on Monday, the 24th of August, 1752. Clonrickard sponsored the first meeting, assisted by the landed gentry of South and East Galway. The races were run over an extensive open field with a sharp gradient at the western end. They were generally held in the month of May, with broad coverage from the Western People, Tuam Herald, Freeman's Journal and the Irish Times. Generally the races were run on a league form. The mid-year race were run as of now, and then the first and second winners contested the final outing. The day's events were conducted by the upper classes. They provided horses and jockeys and sponsorship. Admission through the styles was 1 shilling, but many patrons availed of the approaches across the bordering fields. During the closing years of the festival, bookmakers made their mark, and traces of the iron casings for their poles are still to be seen in the remaining portions of the grandstand. The upper class owners vied with each other for success, and the beaten landlord often felt aggrieved at the failure of his brood horses. Hence the story of Bose Daly of Dalystown cast long shadows over his future participation. For the ordinary racegoer, 10 Irish pennies of the 1840s were sufficient to promise a good day. On day 1, 1752, the LOUGHREA sponsored trophy was won by Thomas Lambert's Starling, whilst the gentleman's subscription was won by Mr. Dillon's Gelding. Then 10 years later, a field of 5-day meetings was held, from Friday the 8th to Wednesday the 13th of October 1762, and then 160 years later a Western plate confined to gentlemen riders who had qualified for the national hunt races at Punchestown and also members of the Galway Hunt. Unrest in the early part of the 19th century and the Great Famine in the middle of the century threatened the existence of the races. However, the course was packed for the 2-day meeting of Tuesday and Wednesday, the 14th and 15th of May, 1867. The list of sponsors included Lord Lowe, Sir Thomas Burke, Mas Thomas Bellew, MP, Captain Blakeney and the Marquis of Waterford. 2 events of the day were eagerly contested. The first, the open races, and then those run in league form. 2 falls occurred. In one, Mr. Rutledge, rider of Hollymount, had his leg broken, and a runaway horse collided with a man called Skerritt. At the turn of the century, train arrangements were as follows. A special train left Broadstone at 8:30 a.m, returning from LOUGHREA station at 6:30 p.m. after the races. Stories associated with the races were few. One, however, tells of a visiting doctor to a patient in the hospital Ballinakill. From North Tipperary, he rode there on horseback. Having arrived, he dismounted, secured his horse and entered. His patient friend saw his opportunity, sneaked out a side exit, mounted the doctor's horse, raced to Knockbarron. He refused to stop at the entrance, but joined in the race in progress. Another story comes from the LOUGHREA area. We are all familiar with the lowlands east of LOUGHREA, referred to as the Seven Springs. The origin of the name forms the basis for the following folk tale. A farmer residing in the Cooreen side of the Grey Lake noticed that his recently sown corn was constantly being trespassed upon and eaten night after night. A friendly neighbour advised the farmer to keep vigil during the night, that he might identify the intruder. The advice proved successful. In the darkened hours, a splendid specimen of a horse rose from the still waters of LOUGHREA and sped to the cornfield. After a short spell, it returned and disappeared into the lake again. This became alarming news in the area, so snares were put in place to trap the midnight intruder. Those proved successful, and so the offending trespasser was trapped. A fine specimen of racing ability was netted. The farmers were admonished to place blinkers on the horse and not to allow him to see the waters of the lake again. Time passed. The Knockbarron races were at hand, and it was decided to enter the animal in the LOUGHREA plate. The horse was led across the fields to the racecourse. The horses lined up. Lord Dunsandle dropped the green flag, and the race was on. The horse from the Grey Lake led the way, outpacing his rivals by furlongs. The race extended to the peak of the nearby hill, and then to return to the finishing line close to Knockbarron's stand. But as soon as the visiting animal reached the ridge, he caught sight of the Grey Lake, took 7 springs, parted with his rider, and vanished beneath the waters once again. So ends our folktale, but its title, The 7 Springs, still remains. The annual race meeting continued right into the 20th century. Quoting from the Freeman's Journal, the following list of stewards and punters are noted: Captain Bellews, MP, Captain Blakeney, Joseph Kelly, Barton Pearce, T. Daly, Captain Bernard, J.S. Caravan, and R.J. Hunter. Also, Messrs. Dowling, Messrs. Joyce, Mr. Stackpole, and Mr. Featherstone. The final meeting of Knockbarron took place on August the 22nd, 1916. The Knockbarron plate was won by First of Man by Mr. Joseph Widger, whilst the LOUGHREA town plate went to Mr. J.J. Robinson with Henrietta. The final episode of Knockbarron ended when the races were transferred to Kiltulla Oranmore, and then, owing to tidal flooding, to Bushy Park, and after a brief season, changed to Ballybrit. Hence, the Galway races.